This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are esteemed. Stay with us. Obotshale, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein, for having me on this show.
Obotshale Abarra was one of the senior judges of Ethiopia, former president of the Supreme Court of Oromia, and currently he is living in the UK. Today we'll be having discussion on the ongoing Oromo conversation initiatives very briefly. And I know that there are a number of people involved in it, but I would like to ask you, how did the Oromo conversation idea start, and who did initiate it really, in general terms?
This question is really tough, and it is really difficult to attribute to any single person the lack of civil conversation, how toxic the environment has been discussed by many scholars and individuals concerned. At any level, there is a complete breakdown of conversation. In Ethiopia, as you all know, conversation is not allowed, and the right to have your opinion at different level is completely banned. And the political organizations are banned, medias are banned, and the Oromos in general were disallowed for the past 100 and so years. And you don't have the right to speak your mind at any level, even at social gatherings such as institutions such as the IDR and which we call WIJO and other associations are completely banned. So the Oromos are disallowed to have conversation. That led to a situation where the Oromos should go underground. At political level, it was completely underground, and from that, the Oromos seem to have stopped to have the conversations they had under the Gada system, where things were robustly discussed and debated and decided. So this worried us. We were discussing this for so long. And finally, people from Australia, Canada, the US and Europe came together, human relations basically, came together and talked about it. If we can talk about our situation in a very civilized and in a very tolerant way, we are going to commit suicide, political suicide, social suicide, and suicide at every level. So we contemplated that we should do something about it. And the only way forward is create a framework, a platform, where this idea of conversation should be discussed. What are the causes that Oromos couldn't have a civil conversation? If you go back to 2016, when we organized in London some form of conversation just before the collapse of EPRDF in its older form, but which continued after Abiy came to power, we tried to create that platform. It didn't work because the participants came with a mindset of antagonizing each other, and it was not possible. So this worried us very seriously. That is why people came together from civic society, basically human rights organizations, and we created this platform. And people picked that idea up very quickly. That tells you that this is a very serious concern. Everybody is concerned about it, and that is how it came to exist, and that is how it is progressing now.
Thank you, Obotshale. Before diving into its major contents, I think it's important to look at the process. How was the process, and how long did it take to reach to the level of preparing a draft document on Oromo consensus and others?
It is about a year now since we seriously began to have some discussion about it. Before bringing to the public, we discussed at different levels, and we invited individuals, scholars, Oromo organizations, civic society organizations, their representatives, and asked them to discuss about this matter. What is it that we are unable to have a discussion? Why is the breakdown of conversation at every level? So people began to present papers and discuss about it, and finally everybody agreed that we have to do something about it. Unless we discuss about, unless we are willing to sit down, tolerate each other, respect the views of each other, whatever views you have, and try to convince each other in a brotherly and tolerant and civilized way, we are not going to go anywhere. And people are talking about freedom and many idealistic and big values, but unless you have conversation and unless you debate and settle on something, you can't achieve anywhere. You can't go anywhere. You can't achieve anything. That has been a consensus. And finally, people began, from that has come an Oromo consensus. What is it that we are discussing? If agreeing to discuss is one thing, agreeing about the core problem, the existing problem, the toxic nature of every available forums and platforms, and our inability to have a civil conversation has been understood. But what is it that we have to discuss about? People came with the idea that, okay, we understand we are unable to have a conversation because of different issues. Some is self-inflicted, some is imposed by the Ethiopian government. The only way out is have a conversation, discuss about the problem of the conversation itself, but we just can't discuss and stop there. We just can't discuss the lack of civil conversation. We have to have an agenda. That agenda should be a national interest. What is it that we should agree upon? A common platform. What is it that we are different on? And the issues that should be debated. And finally, people began to develop an idea of a national interest. And what is that everybody agrees with, such as the right to self-determination and many other issues. Brotherlyhood, and there are economic, social, political, and different interests. People identify that and then began to discuss. We are not different in the first place. We can discuss on those issues and we can work together on those kinds of things. And from that evolved a document, what is called national interest document, a consensus document, which is entirely based on Oromo national interest. That is how it evolved. And many people are involved in that, including yourself and many others.
Thanks so much. We'll be going deep into that. But before that, I think you raised a very important issue, that is a civilized conversation. I think that has been lacking among the Oromos for a number of reasons. And it was started from that, and the how to conduct conversation. For instance, I know there is the Safu and the Kaku document that's related to ethics. Before going deep into the issues on which were defined as a national interest, there was an attempt to define the ethical, the approach, the morals that people should use in having a civilized conversation. By the way, Oromos have the traditional way of conducting it. And I'd like to focus on the Kaku and Safu document. What is that and why?
Yeah, while we were discussing this idea of antagonizing each other, that culture was revealing itself even when we have this conversation, while we were developing this idea of Kaku and Safu and national consensus and related matters. And And from that evolved the Kaku and the Safu. What is it that Oromo is lacking? Why we departed from the Gada system? During the Gada system, in Oromo history, in our own culture, if you go back to the countryside, people conduct a range of discussions and they solve a range of issues. Even murder is solved in many parts of Oromia still today. If you go to Borana, Arsi, and different parts of Oromia, west, east, center, everywhere, especially in the countryside, people solve issues of that level in a more robust and productive way. People sit down, discuss, all based on Oromo culture, the Oromo Gada system. It didn't die away. But the social media, this digital media, completely enabled us in a negative way to commit this suicidal way of insulting each other, ridiculing each other, and in the process kill conversation at every level. So from that, the people began to sort out first the problem and then figure out how to assemble something together from our culture. So the Kaku is a commandment. The Safu is you don't do. There are things you don't do. It is just Safu. It is a taboo that exists in every culture. In Oromo, we call it Safu, like the white people, the Frenches, the Western countries, other society cultures call it taboo. Taboos are taboos. You don't do things that are taboo. It is just disgusting. You just don't do it because it is condemned and people don't like it, and you don't do it. If you do it, you are ostracized. You are hated because people hate it, and if you associate yourself and you cannot detach yourself from it, you will be hated. And more often, sometimes we open a media, a platform, especially the digital media, Facebook, web-based videos and chats, and humiliate brilliant guys because of the ideas they generated. Some of the ideas are blamed because it came from somebody you didn't like or I don't like. And this is quite unacceptable. You see very often this kind of things. So this is Safu, according you don't just humiliate a human person, a human being. You don't do something bad and something you don't like, you don't want to happen to yourself, to your son, to your daughter, to your mother, to your father. You just don't do it. It's unacceptable. And going in public and doing that proudly, it is Safu. It is breaking the Oromo rule. These kinds of things were Safu. And the Kaku is just a commandment. We agree on the Safus, we identify them, and they just don't do it. And the way of doing it is discussion, discourse at a broader level. That is what we are trying to start. We are not establishing a political organization. We don't have any agenda that is meant to compete with political organization or the media or different social institutions. It has nothing to do with that. It is a question of survival, meaning our culture should survive. Our humanity should survive as far as Oromos is concerned. We talk about others suppressing Oromos. What if we are given the chance to rule ourselves? Can we do it as we exist now? That is what worries us, unless we follow this Safu and Kaku by which we Safu and follow each other with a committed way of, unless we mean what we say, and we say what we mean, and unless that is tested and unless that is controlled, and unless what has to be rejected and expelled from Oromo is expelled by the majority of Oromos, we won't go anywhere. The only way to do that is having a civil conversation. We are not saying that we have to silence people for thinking they should think as a scientist, as a journalist, or as a thinker. But insulting someone, shutting someone down because of his opinion, his ideas, that is not acceptable. And that is not to work for us at every level, political, social, or whatever you like. So that is what the Safu and the Kaku are meant to achieve.
Thank you so much. I think those ideas were derived from our culture, our rich culture, actually, the Gada system and how the Oromo they try to solve problems, issues, discussions, and so on. We have a very respected culture, and elders know how to handle problems, as you said. And when you pick it up to the current level, it's about having civilized, honored, and disciplined kind of interaction between people. That's the intention, and it has details, and I think we'll go to that details the other time. But let me take you to the other side of our discussion. What were the major focus of the consensus document? I understand that there was a document developed over there by the involvement of a number of people, and basically the focus of that document is about politics, about economy, about culture, and how of dealing with those things as an Oromo. What were in it, and actually, can you briefly tell us the details?
Yeah, someone during this discussion beautifully put it. It would be difficult to put it the way he put it, and the core of this consensus document is the right of Oromo people to self-determination. This requires first the right to think. Unless you think, you are allowed to think as an individual. You cannot properly think as a community, as a people. That is my view. But what the Oromo consensus is the right to self-determination. Self-determination with respect to the Oromo people, the Oromo people's right to govern on their economy, sovereignty in terms of over the economy, the resource. The Oromo people to govern, to rule their own and determine their economic fate. This it also includes touches upon politics and the culture of the Oromo people should be respected. Unless you determine how to conduct your culture, your politics, and your economy. By economy includes governing yourself, making your own policy. By politics is meant whether you choose what form of governance you want. Is it a federal arrangement? The minimum plan is a federal arrangement. It appears that way, and every participant in this conversation came to the conclusion that the federal arrangement is the minimum the Oromo would be contemplating given the circumstance. But the Oromo shouldn't be forced to accept any of it, and the Oromo should be allowed to exercise which form of government it is going to establish by which form of government, independent state, a federal state, a confederal one. These kinds of choices should be made by the Oromo, and every Oromo should sit down and agree as to how this could be feasible and possible. It is not about this plausibility and possibility. It is about Oromo people coming together and define its interest, and based on that agreement, demand its rights at every level, at political and social, economic, cultural and social, political and economic aspects of it should be dealt with in the framework of the Oromo people's right to self-determination. That has been emphasized by the Ethiopian constitution. It's not a new thing that we are establishing, but it is up to us, the Oromos, to agree, discuss upon what we want, and work together. Things are very clear if we sit down together and then figure out as to how to push everything home. That is what is lacking, and that is what we are trying to encourage. We have got different political organizations, but most of the political organizations, irrespective of where they are coming from, are coming close to the same platform as far as the current circumstance is concerned. That is what we saw during this conversation, and that is what this document have produced so far. The discussion about this document has produced this kind of momentum. That is what I see, and that is what we are trying to build in the future.
Thank you, Botashella. And I understand that these were the key issues, and I participated in that discussion. And yes, finally, it was agreed that it's out to the people to make the final decision, actually, and the role of different actors to enable people make their for instance, in relation to self-determination. And let's go to the other aspect of it. And the conference conducted last week, what was the objective of that conference? Was it productive in your evaluation?
Yeah, it was extremely productive. What we saw over the past year is that a solid unit has been formed, and we saw the outcome of it last Sunday. What we saw is that people had a very clear idea of what they want, and it was really communicated well to each other and to the public. What it is trying to achieve is that what it has achieved is that people agreed on each and every bit of the document. That is quite extraordinary as far as most of us in the conversation is concerned. And everybody emphasized that we start something, but we drop what we started immediately. That was a warning that we received, meaning there is enthusiasm, there is eagerness to have this kind of conversation. So that is what we are going to do. There are a series of documents that has been in a pipeline that we have been working on for some time. No, so now it is we are in the second phase. How is it that we are going to achieve it? We identified the areas where work should be done and where the Oromos agree on without any problem. The next step is how to strategize. What are the strategies to get there? We communicate, we discuss among ourselves. How can we communicate our ideas with other nations and nationalities? How can we communicate with the Ethiopian government? What sort of communication should be opened for us to drive our interests home? Those kinds of things should be sorted out. What is that we are going to ask our political institutions? What would be the role of civic society organizations in this? What role the human rights organization should have in this? Unless we have these tools in place, we can't have a country. Even if we are given a country, which we all complain that we are pushed out of, we can't do anything with it. Having a nation won't work unless you have a plan to manage your affairs in that nation. So we are developing a strategy, and that is where we are going. You may ask that you are not a political organization, you are not capable to do that. You are a human rights organization who is creating a platform. How do you do that? We are not aspiring to do that. I want to explain on that because some people think that we are in the process of establishing something, but we are not. This doesn't mean that we just sit idly by and look at political organization messing up things, or the media messing up things. We have to call them to account, and everybody must do that. That is why we should have conversation. By having a civil and sober conversation doesn't mean that we don't ask each other. We have to be able to ask each other a very tough question, test our ability at every level, at the media level, at the political level, at the human rights level, at every level. Is it? Are we able to communicate with, for example, the nations and nationalities in Ethiopia? What kind of channel should we have? Who is going to talk to them? And how we are going to talk to each other, and so on and so forth, should be dealt with in a very robust way. Those things require a plan. Can the Oromo Human Rights Group and this platform do that? No, but we can create a platform and invite people to deliver on that. That is what we are doing. So far, the political organizations were happy to join and chip in and give us the leadership we were looking for. The Oromo Human Rights Group is looking for leadership. Without leadership, we will perish as a society. Without encouraging and giving them a platform they deserve, we won't exist. Unless we question our media, for example, because I say the media because media is really a key in this. By media, I am saying not the television, those who are running TVs and radios. Even social media platforms should be encouraged. We should figure out as to how we can tap into that and use as a medium of running civil and robust conversation where we promote the suffus and the kakus of the Oromo people, which we developed, and which should be sharpened a little bit.
Thanks so much. I think partly you have answered my following question. That's kind of what's next. And in that meeting or conference, I observed that there were a number of actors, key political actors, civic organizations, elites, high-profile elites, and a number of people involved in it, human rights group members and so on. But as far as this document is concerned, it's a consensus document, and the idea is everybody should agree on it. At least, if not everybody, the lion's share of the people, political actors, anybody, intellectuals, activists, key influential people, the local community, have you, should be involved in it. Is there any plan to buy in the public to this arena, or to sell out what's there. Actually, I saw that it was a draft document, so that document should be distributed, communicated, and people should agree on that. Is there any plan in that regard?
Absolutely, that's the plan. And as you said, it's a draft document. We can't claim that we developed a document which everybody should accept. But we developed a document that could be a reason for discussion, that could show very core key issues as far as communication is concerned, breakdown of conversation is concerned, and there's a need to revive the Oromo way of conversation, and how what damage it caused to us at all levels. So that conversation should expand, and we have to reach out to different organizations, such as the media, by and large, and the different Oromo institutions, academic, community organizations, and so on and so forth. And the politicians should be are the key in this. We need their leadership. By leadership, unless they talk about politics and tell us what they think and how they think they plan to achieve those kinds of things, how they tolerate each other, how they get us where we want to get at, without maximum damage. We have been through maximum damage throughout history. That is what is happening in as we speak, and that is what happened in 1991. That is what happened in 2018, and many opportunities were missed just because we didn't have a civil and robust conversation. And we have got many reasons, and we attribute our failures to many things. We claim that we are 50 million, but it doesn't seem that we are 50 million in terms of what we are achieving today. The fact that you are 50 million and you still don't produce something shows something. So the fact that you are big in number, unless it is counting for something, it's a problem. We must be concerned about that. That is why our politicians should come forward and tell us what they have to tell us. That is why we should discuss things very seriously and robustly. We are responsible not only the fate of Oromos, but those who are living within Oromia and around Oromia. We often say that we are big and we can do whatever we want. You can't do whatever you want just because you are big. You can do whatever you want when you have big ideas and big. That is how it works. That is how it worked all around. It is a plan, and the big idea and the leadership took the many small nations to where they are. There are many small nations than we are, and doing very well. We are not. I'm not saying that we are not suppressed, and yes, we didn't have a dangerous oppressor. That is true, but we must have contributed to that, and we have to find that key. We talk about colonialism and so on and so forth, and some of those who participated in that are Oromos. And we cannot escape by blaming them or blaming those colonizers. We have to talk about it and plan for it and have a very smart to get out of it. Not only for us, it is good for the neighbors and even for the government that is in power. As you know, Ethiopia is in a civil war. Civil war is not good for anyone. No one benefits from it. The oppressed or the oppressed, the oppressor or the oppressed. So the big people and like us should be able to provide a solution that fascinates the world. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. If Abba does produce things today that is so amazing. If you go to Borona and elsewhere, they solve things and they do amazing things. Even when things are banned and things are forbidden, they have preserved a lot of things and it's still working. That institution is still working. Why is it not working in Europe, where we have professors, ethnographers, political scientists who did their PhD and who we call scientists? So we have to tap into our culture and what we have been appreciating and talking about, like the Ghana institutions. We say that we have got a history of 1,000 years of democracy, a way of governing ourselves. So it must work, and we can make it work. That is what we are tapping into by conversation. We are tapping into Gada way of conversation, which is still working in many parts of Oromia, but not in Europe, especially where we have the freedom to talk, where we can do the talking and the conversation without fear of any reprisal from the government. If we are free, we must have been able to have a robust and a very civilized way of civilized conversation. We didn't. There is something wrong with us, and we have to deal with it. By talking in the diaspora, I'm not saying that this conversation should be limited to those people in the diaspora. It should go back, and we are talking about Oromia and not the diaspora Oromos only. But today's conversation is not limited. You can talk to your people any part of or any corner of the world with a click of a button. All we need is a plan to do that.
Thanks so much. And in fact, in spite of the differences we have had, and yet we may have in the future, this is about defining our common interest, the common interest of the Oromo. And you can't have difference in terms of our common interests if we really stand for the question and the interest and demand of our people. It's there, it is defined by the people itself. So, I mean, defining the common interests of the Oromo people and working toward could not be a point of difference for us. But from your observation, to realize this, in fact, there are a number of factors complicated it, a web of factors actually. In your opinion, what is expected of the Oromo people, Oromo political organizations, Oromo civic organizations, community representatives, Oromo elites, and the like? Because defining our common interests could not be a point of difference as far as I'm concerned. Because, okay, you can have a different program, you can have a different strategy, but you can't have different common interest of the Oromo people. What is your advice and what's expected of those I've indicated before, like the entire Oromo people, political organizations, civic organizations, community leaders, elites, and so on?
Yeah, well, the cause is the breakdown of communication. There is a very complete breakdown of communication. So we are wedged to a culture where we recriminate, accuse each other. That has become ingrained in our culture, and we couldn't be divorced from that culture. We have to do that. That's what we are trying to achieve, and that is what we are trying to do. There is intolerance for diversity, for example. When you talk about diversity, some people, it is irreconcilable. There is no we can sit with somebody and talk. If you investigate with what he is talking about and the difference that is emphasized by that very person about the other person, you don't find anything. He's talking and he's saying the same thing as the other guy says. And yeah, I partly understand that there are a lot of betrayals and honesty going on for so long, which make people uneasy to have this kind of conversation. But you cannot stop having conversation just because of that. And we are very diverse, and we must be able to tolerate each other. It doesn't matter whether what you propose is agreeable or acceptable to me. It doesn't matter. We must keep discussing, talking to each other. That is, it is from there that new ideas that is more powerful could develop. And if we agree on the same idea and talk the same thing, we won't make a difference because we agree. But disagree on something and keep on still to discuss with open mind and with responsibility and as a matured person, then new ideas could evolve out of it. You don't discuss with a person you agree. There is no discussion there. You just talk the same thing, and it's quite boring, and there is no conversation there. So the very reason you need conversation is because there are differences. We have got cultural differences because we are talking about 50 million people. There is a difference of culture because our religion is different. The way we brought up is different. The way we were taught is different. So there are differences in whatever we do and how we think and so on and so forth. So we must communicate to see where the difference lies and how to develop something out of it, something beautiful, something better than the two of us. There's always room for discussion and diversity. People are afraid of diversity. And the idea that I don't sit with someone because he's a traitor is quite dangerous. We have been in this for so long and we are wedded to that, it seems that. And some people are genuinely worried that having a conversation with someone compromises them or compromises their follower. And so that they try to just ditch and put a lot of dirt on someone because they fear that it will sway some followers away from their camp. That is not the way you can win. Those winners in many aspects of the world, in many parts of the world, who you know are better and remembered in history, they stood up and talked to their constituencies to shut up when they try to shut the others up. They said, shut up and listen to the others. Very single people came out and talked to their constituencies and advised boldly their communities. That is what Mandela has done, and how he united the blacks and the Indians and the Jews in South Africa. That is how they won. That is what the civil rights movement in the United States became famous. If you look Martin Luther, the way he talked, and he united not only the black, but the way he created supporters from the white community is the way he communicated. Because his way of communication is quite conciliatory. It transcends his portion of the society. It doesn't mean that you are not loyal to some cause. You must be loyal to some cause, but the way you communicate, the way you look at others matter. So leave alone ourselves. We must transcend ourselves and talk to others. We must be able to talk to the Sidamas. We must be able to stand for the Sidamas when they are suppressed. That is what we did. That is why we created a very strong bond between Sidamas and the Oromos. That is what we have been doing with Somalis. But it is too political. We must bring it down to a community level and educate our people and others. We must stand for the Tigrans who are suffering. And we have been doing that for so long. But it must be structured, it must be robust, and it must be based on principle in the first place. It must go beyond what it is today. So when we talk about conversation, it is just not having a conversation with them. It means it is about having a conversation outside of Oromos. It is about driving home the Oromo national interest home.
Thank you very much, and that is essential. As you said, the conversation is essential. There is no question about it. We need to have conversation, create understanding among different actors. We may have differences, but at the end of the day, our common interest is the common interest of the Oromo people. So I wish we, the Oromos, rethink, perhaps rework to strengthen our unity and perhaps strengthen our institutional foundations and keep on educating our people and the various the actors for that matter. And maybe if you have a final remark, you can make that in a split of second.
My final remark is that we appeal to the media, especially the media, like you guys, to guide us in this, to help us navigate through this, because conversation is a broader agenda, which we are talking agenda, national consensus. This requires reaching out to the people. We can't reach out to the people without the media. I emphasized already the need to include the different social media, the need to tap into that. We have to do that. But the mainstream media are quite important. We want them to be part of it. We want them to guide us through that, ask us questions, show us our problems in what we do. Scrutinize what we are doing. Unless we do that, succeed. Especially the people who are talking on this platform should be scrutinized, should be given the chance to communicate, channel their idea. And they must be taught in the process, and they must be able to teach and to share their views, their knowledge, because this idea has been discussed for so long, and we saw many knowledgeable people from the political organizations, from the civic society organizations, and volunteers who were really sharp on this idea, who already spotted our problem and ready to take part and help. So we need the media and you guys to take on this agenda and work on it.
Thanks so much. We'll keep on doing the same, discussing with different actors and whoever interested to talk with us. And with this, our today's discussion will end up. And thank you for coming, Mr. Tashala. For those of you who would like to share your vision, hopes, professional critics, the door is open, and contact me through my Facebook. My name is Hussein Kader. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mr. Tashala, again.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Dr. Hussein.
This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us.
sababa dhibee COVID-19tiin manneen barnootaa, manneen amantii, hiriyootanii fi iddoowwan bashannanaa irraa fagaattanii jirtanii wantoota jaalattanoo sababa kanaan dhabdanii jirtanii eeyyeen wantoota jaalattutti deebi'uudhaaf sodaa malee bilisaan deemuudhaaf talaalliin COVID-19 fudhachuu si barbaachisa. Talaallii COVID-19 fudhachuudhaaf murteessinaan dargaggeessa yookaan dargaggeettii taanaan gaafii qabaannaan ogeessa fayyaa kee gaafachuu dandeessa. Fayyaan qabeenya, fayyaan jireenya.